Alright guys, we're going to give you a quick brief on how Jesus Christ actually taught his disciples, taught me, and why history's been the way it is, because people made things way more complicated than they needed to be, right? We're going to assume one thing. We're going to legalize marijuana, right? The whole point of the gospel was that was his whole message, was to make sure that got down through the generations, right? Along with all those individual lessons, everything else. That's the number one thing that had to get through no matter what, right? And we'll even get back to that and prove that in a minute. But here we go. Once we did that, we would look at all these things differently, all our big problems. Religion, we'll come back to population management, gay marriage, abortion, racism, divorce, and even obviously national defense. As far as national defense, obviously the best way to do national defense is make it so you don't have wars in the first place, right? And make it so you can relate to other countries, you know, talk peacefully, and to keep them happy. Make sure these people are living a fulfilling spiritual life too, right? So national defense, once we legalized marijuana, shared some of our great abundant natural resources here. We're going to add, though, environment, right? Because now we're not going to be cutting down as many trees. The cannabis plant's pretty amazing. Whole 9 yards, that one's on there too, right? Solves a lot of problems with the environment. National defense, obviously our happy neighbors are going to be much easier to deal with. Divorce itself, be an amazing thing for a husband and wife. They get in a little disagreement, have a spatter, different way of looking at things. Be able to take that little break that Christ recommended, get back into your spiritual body, look over everything again and realize, you know what, it's not me against you. I believe my way is right, you do too. We're going to look at it together and find that happy middle ground, just like the Buddha said. Christ got a lot of teachings from him too, right? So divorce, we're going to cut down on that drastically. God forbid someone did get married, they just couldn't do it anymore, they had some irreconcilable difference, whatnot. Most likely they'd save a lot of money because they wouldn't need a defense attorney. They'd be able to be, as friends, they'd be able to figure out all these problems, right? Okay, good. Racism. One of the big reasons why cannabis was able to move forward so quickly without any opposition in the beginning of being illegal was racism. They didn't want the races to mix quite that much, because what tended to happen was people would see each other in their spiritual bodies the same way. Obviously the whole teaching of Christ was about that, right? And we'd still live in these flesh bodies, but through our spirit, right? So we wouldn't be deceived and have all these problems, right? So as far as racism, it made people see just through their spiritual eyes. They didn't really see color or notice it as much. So we weren't quite ready for that back in 1937. Dr. King was getting on it in a lot of his speeches. I know they really weren't quite ready for it then. But now we are. We're ready to move forward. So that combats a lot of problems with racism. Also, it's a shame to think of people's lives have been ruined for even if they did sell a little bit of this drug, right? It's an amazing blessing for a lot of people, and they certainly shouldn't be in jail. We'll need to look at that afterwards also. As far as abortion, abortion's always been, this is all a Christian perspective. You know, this is the actual way it is. I've been studying 7 years, definite disciple of Christ, come basically through life very similar to him. Had this focus since I was a kid, knowing that one day I'd probably have to explain something like this to people. Here we go, abortion. Soul's always been the air breather, meaning we make a conscious decision as human beings of which souls we're going to bring into the world. Hopefully we try to plan it, right? You know, we try to use where we can give the baby love and all those different things. But ultimately that's our decision. You know, right now with 1 in 10 kids having autism, God's trying to send us that message in the parables, right? Parables of life. We work from today down, right? If you have to go all the way back to Christ, that's good, right? 1 in 10 kids having this problem, it's trying to send a message to us with all this technology we got, right? We need to make a decision based on what the life is going to be like for that person, right? And the parents are able to judge that. And in certain cases, even after the fact, it might be deemed that this person's not going to go on to continue life. But ultimately, the soul's the air breather. And for you to judge, right? See, there's a difference between judging another person, which you don't want to do, and Christ said not to do, and judging what that person is judging, which you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to keep your leaders in check. So an 18-year-old girl, 21-year-old girl is not all stressed out about the decision of having an abortion. They're able to talk to somebody 30, 45 minutes that's well educated on the topic, able to walk them through the life, all three people, her, the baby, and the man. You know, I'm sure he wants to have a say in it. He's probably not going to be with this person. He's going to be responsible for the next 18 years. And if the child's going to have autism or some birth defect anywhere, whatever the particular circumstance says, right? You know, all three parties the two parties are going to make that decision, and then you know, that soul or air breather can be born into another flesh body, right? because that's how it works, right? We can get into a long, detailed discussion about that. Ultimately, though, air breather, we bring him into the world, the soul's here, goes back to the Father when it's done, okay? So we conquer all these different ones here. Gay marriage, what Christ referred to in Sodom and Gomorrah was people acting, wild lifestyle, disrespectful, everything like that. Hardly the same as two individual souls, right, getting together and deciding to go through this life together, right? And for any man and a woman to judge this one, right, not recommended, because it actually adds to a couple other problems, right? And one of our biggest problems is going to be population management, which I'll talk about in a minute, right? With gay marriage, though, this person, you can't tell a woman and the woman that they need to go buy a dog, or they have to be with a man that they don't relate to, they don't want to be with, they're not attracted to, whatever reason, right? You just can't do that, right? That's not part of anything to do with Christianity or anything with the Christ, right? He was all about solving problems. Once we legalize marijuana, we'll be able to look at these things a little bit better. We're going to be able to perceive more clearly, and then you're more likely not to take it personally or what would you do, because that's not what the gospel was about. It was all what Jesus Christ would do, right? And this is what he would do, right? So with gay marriage, stick up for our friends. Equal that. If a man and a woman's going to be able to get married, so be it. A woman and a woman, man and a man, they're more than welcome to get married, right? In fact, we bless it, and it helps with one of our biggest problems that we're really concerned about, and we have no way to deal with because we're not solving this one first, population management. Obviously, the gay couple's not even going to have kids, right? They're going to be maybe even able to adopt some kids that were without love, some really great things, right? Population management also with abortion. If we're going to have a baby born that's not going to be able to live a fulfilling life, right? If they're going to have Down syndrome, whatnot, that's a decision we're going to make, right? And then we can bring another soul air breather, like we said before, back right on through. As far as religion was always meant for different parts of the country, different parts of the world, different regions, to be able to relate to God in a similar fashion so they could, the ultimate goal was to be led by the Spirit through this life so you could live a fulfilling life that was pleasing to God and also served Him, right? So with religion, all religions were good. It was more the people's perception and how they practiced that religion, how they implemented it, and the impact it had on their people, right? That was what it was all about. And what Christ actually did with religion was he studied the religion. He took Abraham, right, the father of all religion. It was about 2,000 years before Christ. Learned all his teachings. And then, after Abraham, about 500 years later, so 1500 BC, you had Moses. A lot of the teachings of Christ, especially when it pertains to legalizing cannabis, comes from the teaching of Moses and a lot of the, the original teachings of Judaism, which is fine. Christ just updated it, combined it with the best things from other religions, and applied them to mankind so we could live a more fulfilling life, be led by the Spirit, and have that one relationship with the Father that He did while He was here, right? So this is the number one thing, right? And Christ did come, like I said, mastered all religion, came up with the perfect philosophy for mankind. The only thing is we made it a lot more complicated. You got to remember, Christ only took probably 30 minutes to explain all this stuff to His disciples, sent them on their way. Now one of the key strategies He used when He did that, being though He's meeting people for the first time, is He'd always get them on common ground with Him in a one-on-one relationship so they could understand this and move forward and get the message out to other people. How He did that was He used cannabis, right? Spiritual thing where we had a one-on-one and knocked down all barriers, even if we were from a different place, whatever the case might be. He was able to really get that one-on-one with you so you could move forward with that information, right? And we had to get it through the years so it would get through, and we'd get to a point like we're blessed today where the Scriptures are actually coming true, right? So with religion, we don't want to divide people with religion. This unites people with religion. The number one thing we'll want to do is offer this to people in other countries so they can see that way, that that's not their reality. There's no way they would look at their neighbors that they never met before just because they were from a different country and be tricked into thinking that was their enemy and shoot bombs on them and stuff. So number one thing you want to master with religion, we're going to go to, I got a little Bible study for you guys to follow through with this. Mark chapter 4, 11 through 13, Christ talks about the perceiving. Number one, all religion is perceiving. What do you actually see, right? And then you'll be able to come up with the solutions rather easy. If you can see the teachings in Him, you'll also be able to see God's work through mankind and through the bodies here. These spiritual bodies are getting run around a lot. People aren't living a fulfilling life. and they're doing jobs they're not good at as a result of trying to cover up all these things, right? This is always number one. Then we're going to go to Matthew chapter 15, verse 8, and I want you guys to read all the way until chapter 16, verse 12, and keep in focus here, bread that Christ talked about was actually marijuana, right? When he talked about, this is my blood, right, which is the everlasting covenant, this is my body, breaks the bread, gives it to the disciples. What he was talking about was that would be always your way to communicate with me at a higher level, right? And people can say, well, I don't need that, that's fine. But a lot of people do, and they deserve it, right? And the main focus of Christianity is make sure they have that opportunity to enter that spiritual body, right? So then we got the Sermon on the Mount. We're going to look at that. That was actually fulfilled this year with the Colorado thing was a great thing. You look at the Sermon on the Mount, and you'll see that. That's Matthew chapter 5, 1 through 19. And then I want you to do one thing that really makes things a lot easier nowadays moving forward if we're going to do that. And actually go to Matthew chapter 5, verse 37. And he says, let your yes be yes and your no's be no. For whatever is more than these is from the evil one, right? Nothing takes away from this, letting you see clearly solve all these problems, right? The only thing that takes that away is someone coming up with a big story. You're going to have 100 people meet. Nothing's going to get done. Instead of, I'm trying to keep this down to less than 15 minutes. We solve all these problems, actually be able to use the resources that we have here that we're blessed to have, make life better for people in other religions, in other countries, let them see that truth that Christ taught, right? And then we also got chapter 6, 5 through 11. And then right after the Sermon on the Mount, which ends in chapter 7, Jesus Christ, like any other amazing teacher throughout history, practiced what he preached. So the guy goes in, chapter 8, finds a guy that has leprosy, which is pretty much the same as cancer nowadays, right? You know, if you wanted to equate a problem of our time with leprosy back then. And Jesus actually heals the guy, and he tells him, go to the high priest, show him offer to them the gift that Moses commanded, right? Which was cannabis, and a couple other elements. In this regard here, they were talking as anointing oil, right? Christ, in his prayer, used to use it for spiritual wisdom and close to his Father, to get away from here. So here's a good example of that. The actual classic Our Father prayer, here's what Jesus Christ said about it. And when you pray, you shall not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand praying in the synagogues and on the corners of the streets, that they may be seen by men. Assuredly I say to you, they have their reward. But to you, when you pray, go into your room, and when you have shut your door, think about why do you have to do this to pray? Think about this. Shut your door, pray to your Father who is in the secret place, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. Okay? Watch right here. You'll be able to have that relationship with your Father. Here we go. And when you pray, do not use vain repetitions as the heathen do, for they think they will be heard for their many words, right? He's locking you down. Watch the prayer, follow the prayer and what he's asking you to do, and the commandment in the prayer too. Right? Therefore, do not be like them, for your Father knows the things you need before you ask him. In this manner, therefore, pray. This is the way you're supposed to do it, and this is the result you're supposed to expect afterwards. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Here, now. Not when you die, heaven, floating around, theology and all those things, okay? Give us this day our daily bread. Please do, right? We want to have that relationship with you. If you say the Our Father and you're not a cannabis user and stuff like that, continue to say your prayer. This was a very spiritual prayer, so we could always keep it going through the generations, and people could tie together the story. Enough of them could, to where it could get through to this time now where we're actually able to get these things done. And then he says, forgive us our debtors as we forgive those. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one, right? Don't be deceived by all this crazy stuff. Get your stuff right for the time you live in. You can fix everything. A lot more people live a fulfilling life instead of arguing over crazy stuff, right? I can assure you, no one should be sitting in a church until marijuana is legalized. These things are on the way to moving forward because no one really is against any of these things, right? We just had a misunderstanding, right? He said, for yours is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. That means make it like you see it. Make this reality for people, right? Other two places I want you guys to look real quick. Like I said, chapter 8, right afterwards, Jesus starts practicing what he preaches, starts healing these people, gets the gospel moving forward, right? And my contribution, right, what I'd like to help people do to benefit from my studies, like I said, I've studied pretty extensively for the past 7 years, Matthew 12, 18 through 21. Christ actually sends messengers during the time. Right now, one of the biggest things we need is a good moderator to kind of bring everything together and make sure the country's able to move forward, right? Get this done. It's the job of the people to contact their local representatives, their congressmen. The chain of command all the way through to make sure this happens. This is the backbone of it. The whole teaching, legalizing cannabis, helps with our perception problems, solves all these different things. And I'll tell you guys, it'll be a Merry Christmas. We can take the money we save on litigation from gay marriage, the problems with population management stresses everybody out. Racism, I don't know if it'll save a lot of money. The environment, it's going to be amazing. And the money we save on trying to mess with abortion, gay marriage, and what was the other one? You know, divorce will make life a lot better for a lot of people. Thank you guys very much. Do this. You'll be blessed. You understand religion now. This is basically how it worked. This is how Christ taught it. He didn't have all day. And he was just meeting these people at a one-time occasion in history. Wanted to help them out the rest of their lives. Take care, guys. Apply these teachings. It'll work forever.